Hey everybody, welcome to another live question and answer. And so we were talking of the last question and answer about these classes that we want to do with the GoPro, and I'm really getting excited about it because I had a really good class last night, and I want to identify some of my students that I think would be okay with being filmed. But I think what we want to do is definitely move forward with this. I'm pushing Patrick in this direction. I think it's going to be fun. I think last night was full of great dialogue. There's a lot of going back and forth with people, and brings up a lot of issues in upholstery that sometimes I forget. I'm going to give you some examples today about some of the things that we run into as upholsterers, and this week's been kind of a tough week with design.
Yeah, sorry we're late today.
And sorry we're late because it's been part of it is.
You just got here.
I mean, I can't believe the amount of designing that I'm doing lately. You don't think of an upholsterer as a designer, but we do design, and we should be good at this. I'm not talking about going into a room and and ordering a sofa, 2 chairs, the window treatments, and all that. Designers really do a good job of putting multiple things together and that way. No, I'm talking about within our business and that within our trade. So I wanted to give you, before I get started on this other stuff, so look forward to this GoPro thing over the summer, I think, Patrick.
Well, we have to film Jimmy's one more class.
Jimmy's got a class, and people are really interested in the online classes still. I know that, but we've kind of let go of the YouTube channel, and I'm really at the over 10 years we've been doing this, Patrick. I don't want to let this slide any more than we've let it slide. We keep promising to do YouTube videos, which we seem like we don't have time for, but I think if we can incorporate the GoPro into our in-house classes.
So it's going to be a free YouTube class.
A free YouTube class with huge amounts of content. You just see me in action with people teaching multiple levels and also pieces. For instance, last night I had a Victorian tufted back chair belonging to a doctor. She came right from doing surgery in her scrubs to coming to my class, and she's really a hot ticket. She's doing the tufted back Victorian chair. I got another person doing a Parsons chair, which is really interesting. She's doing a really good job. I got another person knocking down a piece of furniture and building it back up just to see if he can do it. He's a woodworker type guy. And other things in that class. Really exciting class, really fast-paced. I mean, an hour and a half, what was it? Hour and a half, almost 2 hours, right, Patrick?
Right.
2 hours. 2 hours class. Goes by so fast, and we all have a lot of fun. And at one point in the class, people were asking about some of the illustrations that Michaela has done for us. Some of the past jobs that we've done, like Napoleon's chair, his actual chair, John Belushi's sofa, H.R. Haldeman's sofa, Johnny Cash's sofa, the Friend sofa. There was one more in there, Lady Di. I mean, those are just to name a few of the interesting projects, even before Patrick was born, that came my way. And I don't know how Michaela did it, but some of these projects have not been with me for a long time. We had some photos of some of the pieces, and we still have one piece, but the Lady Di chair, Patrick, we didn't have a picture of that, I don't think. And she recreated it based on what I told her, and she's got these beautiful illustrations. So the dialogue was about that towards the end of the class, and that was fun. So that's just an example of, I think the classes are going to be those GoPro classes, Patrick, are going to be different than everything else that we do,
Yeah.
which is going to be good. Anyhow, so getting back to the design elements, I've had some really challenges. Don't assume that your clients will understand the decisions that you make in design choices. So I get 2 examples here. The first one I want to talk about, which is large repeats, Patrick. Large repeats on I have a customer who's looking at 27-inch vertical, and I think the side to side is 14 or 15-inch side to side or horizontal, right? Well, she's got 6 cushions that sit in a sunroom. One's with a settee and the other ones are for chairs. And they're not big. They're probably the seat cushions are probably about 20 inches by 22 inches, okay? So we're looking at the fabric choices that she had, and she's wanting to know how I will approach this. I said, well, I'm going to try to center first the seat, and then everything else goes off the seat. I mean, the back cushions. Do I flow the back? Maybe not. Probably not. A lot of times we don't flow, and we don't do a flowing match. We may do a flowing match from the top of the seat to the boxing. I was with the client for at least an hour and a half today, discussing to her the options. So she shows me there's a picture of a fabric that she picked. Well, there's a peacock over here. Sorry about the illustration. There's a bouquet of flowers here. There's another bouquet of flowers here. She never even saw the peacock. And the peacock is probably the primary motif. And then I have a secondary motif of a bouquet of flowers, and then I have a third motif of the flowers. So I'm explaining to her what I'm going to do. Well, I'm going to put the peacock in the cushion. Now, am I going to center the cushion exactly? Yes, side to side I'll center the peacock, right? But back and front, I have to consider the back cushion. So it's not going to be centered if it's by itself. You're looking at it by yourself, you're going to see the peacock's not centered. Because I'm centering to where the back cushion hits. See, there's so much to this that it isn't funny. I mean, and I was giving her all this. She says, well, I don't like the peacock. She said, why can't you put the flower bouquet? I said, I can do that, but you're going to have a half a peacock over here. So this is how the discussion went for an hour and a half. And it's a good thing that we were talking about this. I had to remind her, and I'll remind you guys. It wasn't until the 90s that designers decided to take drapery fabric, which is what we're talking about here, which has huge repeats, which fit well into a curtain that drops from the ceiling to the floor. It looks beautiful, there's great flow, you have vines and everything else. It was in the 90s when they decided, they would say, okay, Kevin, I want you to take the fabric that I use for the drapes and put it in this small chair, this side chair, or this sofa, or this love seat, or this club chair. And it was up to us. We got really good. Upholsterers in the 90s really got good at. We were good before that. We were good with scale and all that thing. We got really good at designing and putting fabrics, making large repeats into smaller areas. We're experts at it, and you should be. You guys should practice this. But I could talk a lot longer about this. But it's a good thing we were talking, because this particular customer didn't like the way I was going to lay it out. And I says, well, you're going to have to really, if you're going to do this fabric, you're going to have to trust me, because when I get the fabric, I make even more final decisions about it. So getting onto the back cushion. So she has a back cushion. Do you take the peacock and put the peacock in the back cushion? Maybe. I don't know yet. It might look better flowed. I don't know yet. I need to see the full bolt. There's some things that remain a mystery until you get the fabric, and that's another thing. You need to really make stress with your customer. This particular customer has really strong opinions. That's fine, but you can only do what's humanly possible and what your experience is going to tell you. So you really have to, at some point, really get firm in your belief in how you're going to, and trust in your ability that you're going to make, in the case of large repeats onto small projects, that it's going to make sense. And you can get really adamant about it. To add a little, extra angst to this. If the settee has a cushion sitting here and another cushion sitting here, well, are two peacocks going to look good in such a small area side by side? I don't know yet. So that's what I was telling her. I was going through this. There's a lot to this. Not to mention, she wasn't happy that she needs more fabric if she wants me to have a good sense of how this is going to be. I mean, if I have to put a peacock in every cushion, you need extra fabric, which I dropped that bomb for today, because this is expensive fabric. So that was one of my challenges. So today was, here's another thing, you guys, right? I'm only getting a labor cost. I estimated the labor before I knew that we might have to be doing some design work on extra large patterns. So I never mentioned this before. On your labor, you're usually estimating labor based on plain fabrics, really. Not on this. This takes time. And this is a lot of hand-holding. This particular customer is not going to say, okay, here's the fabric, I trust you. It's not that way. She wants to partner with me, which is fine, but I really didn't add on for that. So let that be a warning to you about anything that's a little unusual in the way of fabrics, and be prepared for that. Now, the other second this week, I'm designing. This is a project. It's going to be for a music festival that's coming to Boston, and it's the frame is going to be built the day, 2 hours. It's going to be done before the festival, so I cannot go over and measure the cushions. So I have an architectural. I hate going by architectural schematics or whatever you want to call them. I have a hard time reading them. They're not to me in plain English. So I'm looking at this one. Over here in the front, they had 3 foot, let's say 7 inches. They went like this, okay. I'm looking at that, that's the seat. That's a big cushion. And then over here, there was another measurement, 1.8, like that, 1 foot 8 inches over here. Okay. So I had to make sure that, what am I dealing with here? I couldn't read it. So it comes out, it's this, all right? But the only solid ones I have the measurement so far after a lot of deciphering is the rectangular ones, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the one that, the tricky one is going to be the curve piece right here. Now there's back cushions with this too. So I'm going to have to make patterns, a lot of pre-work on this one because I can't, ideally I'd like to measure it onto the piece. I can't do that in this case. I have to go by these architectural renderings. So I need to make sure that this seat cushion with the curve and a back cushion, which is even harder, I'm going to have to make sure that I get the curve. So what this is going to be, a curve, just to let you know, on a curved cushion, back cushion like this, it's a 2-inch back cushion. You actually have to cut your boxing at a curve, right? So if it's 2 inches, you cut your boxing 3 inches, just like this. This is the top view of that curve cushion, top view, to get the curve. You're not going to get the curve if you make a flat cushion like these ones. You're not going to get the curve. And so the only thing that's going to save me if I'm a little bit off on this, which I guarantee I will be, is the fact that it has to be Velcroed, because these have to be put in place because it's going to get a lot of heavy use. And there's also another thing that might save me is because the architect said that there's a gap, a little bit of a gap on purpose in between each one of these cushions, which pretty much saves the day. That there's not going to be usually a tight fit side to side or a perfect fit. They're purposely leaving these open for effect or whatever. And then they're going to have up at the top of the back, there's a brass rail that comes around here, and they have these leather straps that they're fake, you know, they have the appearance like they're holding the back cushion up, but it's just for a design, it's just a design element. So I'm a little excited about this job, but I'm also a little nervous. So those are the 2 examples of a lot of prep work before you actually get the job. And do you always figure for your labor on something like that? I don't know. I don't. I'll be honest. That's one thing I'm not great at. I don't think upholsterers, woodworkers, people who work with their hands like that are good at it. But if they were really to charge for the actual labor, you wouldn't get any jobs. So what that means is that, you know, if you're booking out at $80 an hour, which I do, is it really $80? Are you really hitting that $80 eight hours a day, at least 5 days a week? In my case, 6 days a week. I can tell you, no. I really mean it. I mean, I'm working extra hours and everything else. I mean, it might come out to that with the extra hours, but that doesn't work that way. Just ask any plumber. Any questions, comments, or anything, Patrick? I know I just laid out a lot of stuff.
Yes, people are enjoying it. She needs to get a different fabric with no peacocks, Julie said. If only for that easy. Helen's really enjoying it. The lesson. Malcolm says he's a chair with peacock fabric that needs to be upholstered as well.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a coincidence.
Julie says, how do you work out how much more fabric you need? Sounds like a nightmare.
Well, it depends on what the project is. I mean, in this case, it's 6 cushions, which isn't a huge labor job, like I said. I was talking to my wife about this. You know, we never hide our labor costs of what we get. So listen to this guy. I get $900. I get $900 for this, and we've already spent, between Michaela and I with this client, we've already spent, I hope she's not looking, but it's okay. We're not saying anything bad. We've already spent at least 3 hours. That's $80 an hour, 8, 16, 24. That's already $240 that we've spent, and we haven't even put a pair of scissors to a fabric yet. So that gives you an idea. It's not all the time though. Usually, with me with customers, it's really quick, because most customers just say he knows what he's doing. I'm going to pick the fabric and I'm going to let him do it. If I did it for most customers, but there's an extra element. In all fairness to this particular customer, she's got other concerns, and so she has a sunroom. And in the wintertime, she wants to get the idea or the feeling of a garden, or bringing a garden in. And certainly these fabrics that she picked does that. So she doesn't want plain fabric, she doesn't want geometric, she does want something floral, but she wants it to fit into a restricted space. So it's just probably just let me do what I need to do. I mean, I was giving her a little bit of a background on how I do it, how the approach is. The approach is, if you got 3 motifs or 4 motifs or a dozen motifs in a fabric, you pick the primary one, or what you think is the primary one. Usually the judgment is there, as the subject matter is one. Like I happen to like peacocks. Who doesn't like a peacock? If I have a choice between a peacock and a floral arrangement, I'm going to pick the peacock in the center, right? Am I wrong? What do you think, Michaela? What would you pick? So it's beautiful too. And then there's a really bold, on another fabric that she picked, she's got a really bold red bouquet. I mean, that's making a statement. She said she doesn't like it, but she likes the rest of the fabric. I said, well, I would probably, the first thing I tell her, I said, I would close my eyes, unroll the fabric, open my eyes, and what pops out at me usually is my first instinct is right. It's what the designer is focusing on. Sometimes, not all the times, that particular motif's not in the center of the fabric. That doesn't always tell the story. So it's the first instinct, and I said that would be what I would put in the middle. Oh, I don't like that. She said, I like this. So she points to another one, and she said, well, where is that going to end up? I said, it could end up half of one or 3/4 of one. I don't know. I have no idea right now, because I don't know the exact measurements of the cushions. You see what I'm saying? So, and in the case of the peacock, she wanted to know, can I use a flower? I said, you might be able to use another secondary flower, but you might have a decapitated peacock on the side of the corner. I mean, it goes on and on and on, but, really, I really study. When the fabric comes in, it's like 5 minutes, it's done, 5 minutes, bing, 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 and I know exactly how to do it. But when I'm having to try to describe it, educate it as a teacher, sometimes these things are difficult with a client, especially when you don't have the fabric in front of you, you don't have the cushions in front of you. So it's all consultation at this time. And do we get paid for consultation, Michaela? No, we don't. Which is another thing maybe we should examine. I don't know. If we start adding all these extra charges like pickup and delivery and consultation, and like plumbers, they're pretty good at keeping every minute of the day that they work somewhere, right? Anyhow, I'm complaining I'm going on too much, but is there any other comments or anything there, Patrick, before I move on?
Yeah, Malcolm has cutting curved pieces like auto upholstery sucks up a lot of fabric. That's
right. And I mentioned parson chair, that a student has a parson chair. Parson chairs take up a tremendous amount of fabric for that reason. We don't have curves in parson chairs, but when you look at a parson chair legs and the side, usually that's all one piece. It's not a seam piece. Usually you cut that out. So there's a lot of waste that goes into that on all 4 sides of a parson chair. It's amazing how much fabric a small, fully upholstered parson chair takes. So I was getting in the habit. People were buying these parson chairs in the 90s again. 90s were a challenging time for upholsterers. That's when we tested. That's separated the men from the boys and the woman from the girls, Patrick, in upholstery. Those were the upholstery wars, the Ottoman wars, the Ottoman Empire. But they were challenging times, at least for me in the shop that I was at. Anyhow. I knew a very skilled, and this brings up a real memory actually about peacocks, especially something about peacocks.
Still about that.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the peacocks.
This show is for the birds.
But we did a sectional. Thank God it wasn't me. It was my mentor. He did a sectional out of a fabric, a peacock fabric, and he worked. You work hard on these jobs, really. That they're extra work. He did an excellent job on his. It was for a designer, and the designer said, "Here, I trust you. Do it." He did it. I was watching him. I was observing. I agreed with every decision he made. He did the peacocks. He had the peacock in the front on the cushion. It had back cushions. He pulled the peacock a little bit to the front, balanced it. When the back cushion is in, it's centered. You see what I mean? And all of that, he chose, I think, instead of flowing from the top cushion, and this is where you got in trouble, he decided to take, and I agreed with this too, he decided to take a nondescript part of the fabric and use that as the border, because the other way just didn't look right to him. And you have this license. You have to make sure the client knows that you have a license. You have a license. You're James Bond. You have a license to upholster, not to kill, right, Patrick? But anyhow, he did this whole thing. Beautiful, multi cushions everywhere. Skirt. He did the skirt nice. He flowed the skirt from the seat to the skirt. He really did a good job. But everything except that, she looked at that. She started arguing, and she went. And then it turned into a kind of a fight, a shouting match, and it didn't get pretty from there. It wasn't pretty, Patrick. Because you had two opposing forces. They were both good at what they did, and she didn't think that putting that nondescript boxing on all the cushions was the right move, but it was the right move. Both of us, upholsterers, are really good at this. If there's one thing an upholsterer is really good at, is 3D imaging, putting 3D images putting images in your head, and the experience behind you. You really get good at this, and really, there's really no. I'll be honest. I don't make these mistakes. I don't make mistakes with fabrics like that. I really don't. My students will tell you I'm a stickler for this. Even plain fabrics. You look at a plain fabric, you guys. It has 8 directions. It could have 8 directions. So, it could 4 on the front, 4 on the back. Some fabrics are reversible. Some fabrics overall. If it's a reversible overall fabric, you get 8 directions. And if you really want to count bias, some people have done bias on these fabrics, which is crazy. You throw that in there, and that's another 8. That's 16, really. But really, when it comes to matching and really cutting fabric and making sure that everything, once you pick a center or a side of the fabric, it gets marked because you're cutting them in small pieces. A real stickler for this. And if we do the GoPro class, people will see this. People will see how I teach people not to make these mistakes. And that's important, especially in the beginning. So any more, Patrick? We'll get going on the Facebook.
Yes, so Malcolm has a few comments here.
Yeah.
He says, if you're using architectural renderings to make the cushions, how accurate are the drawings? They should be plus minus 1/16.
That's actually a good point, because these are like that. And I said to the architect, listen, we don't deal in 16th or 1/8, even 3/4. So when I was looking at all the measurements with him, he had one that was 7 3/4, let's say. So we're going to make that 8, unless you want it 7.5. So why do we do that? In upholstery, we have 1/2 inch seams. And I can measure an 1/8 if I had to, but when you're talking about fabric that any type of stretch at all, you really can't get bogged down on fractions, really, honestly. In clothing design, making clothing, certainly, when you're fitting the human form is much harder, I think, than I think it's harder being a tailor, to be honest with you. But then you're talking smaller seams. But on these ones here, so there was a decision. We went through all the measurements, and we discussed each one to the 1/2 inch, not to the. And you're right, those renderings. So you have to set that straight. I'm not making with soft furnishings, with soft cushioning and soft fabric, and Dacron. You throw Dacron and foam in there. We can't get down to that fraction. I don't know of any upholsterer that can. So, you have to make the adjustments there. It's the same thing on window seats. Sometimes you're better off having it a little bit longer instead of, I hope Malcolm agrees with that. I'm not sure if he would. But that's interesting. You should mention that. I did go over all the measurements, and this isn't cutting a piece of wood to fit into a place. You can do wood. You can do wood down to fraction, certainly, but not upholstery. Half inch. I only deal with half inch. I only deal with quarter inch. Yep. So we're going to get to the Facebook, and I think I'm going to start with the.
Sorry, one more.
Yep.
Helen says, how do you cope with uneven plaid?
Uneven plaid?
Yeah.
So what she has is probably a plaid that's been backed. When you back a plaid, I've had this happen to me, or she's got a very stretchy plaid, which good luck on that one. But it's either a stretchy plaid, she doesn't specify, does she?
No.
Maybe we can ask her, is it a stretchy plaid, or is it a plaid that's been backed? Because either one of those, what happens with plaids is you have little inconsistencies. And if you have like a real kilt-like plaid, you're going to notice the smallest inconsistency, really. So you're starting at a disadvantage with the fabric like that. Plaids, I'll tell you why plaids are really hard in upholstery, because you're stretching. We have to stretch fabric. Let's say you have a crown seat that you're stretching over a plaid. So you have it's hard enough having a stripe front to back, getting it lined up, but then you add the side to side on a plaid stripe, because you still have to stretch it. You can't just lay the fabric on there like a slip cover. We were talking about this last night in class. Again, this came up. We make our cuts inside the chair, and we stretch our fabric. We stretch it enough so that we know that it's going to survive 10,000 seatings and not wrinkle. Now imagine that on a stretchy plaid. I mean, one thing for sure, tests your skill. I can tell you, if you really want to test your skill, that's the way to do it. And we have an example coming up here. I have a picture to show you. I do have a picture on this one of just how you can test your skill on certain projects, and this is one of them, and I'll get to that in a minute. Did she follow up with that, Patrick, to tell us what she had? What type of plaid?
No, yeah, but Malcolm followed up with his point. He said, my point is that the frames have been plus minus 1/16. Then you can adjust for the foam of fabric to your shop tolerances. That's what he says.
That's right. And you know what else I've done, Malcolm? And I'm just going to give you a little cheat. There are little cheats in every business, right? In the cheat, and when you're dealing in cushioning, and let's say for some reason the fabric didn't work out the way you did on your half-inch seams that you cut, and you end up with a smaller side-to-side, I'm talking side-to-side now, side-to-side cushion. Let's say it's an inch smaller, you're in trouble, right? Well, sometimes what you can do with the Dacron is run a Dacron bullet nose it side to side so that the boxings bulge out just a little bit. Even with piping, sometimes what happens is, you'd be surprised, especially a non-welted cushion, when you can bullet nose it a little bit side to side, you fill in that gap, and everybody's happy. It beats doing them all over again. I mean, of course, you might have to do that too, but there are little, maybe we should do a little segment on that, Patrick. The what do they call those? Not cheats, but not gimmicks.
Hacks.
Hacks. There you go. Like the button hack.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got a comment. I'll probably read it in a minute. The guy said, "This is awesome." I don't know if he's being sarcastic or if he's serious. I don't know how awesome it is. I mean, it's not like watching an accident or something. Do you do that, Patrick? Do you watch YouTube videos other than Upholstery on Broadway or Broadway Upholstery?
Nope, just Upholstery on Broadway. I blocked everything else.
Good answer. That's a good answer. All right, well, let's get to the Facebook. And for you guys...
Wait, hold on, Helen followed up.
Okay.
She says, not symmetrical pattern.
Not symmetrical.
But I think she mentioned if it was stretchy or not.
Not symmetrical. Oh, I see what she's saying. She's saying I know what she means now. She has a plaid that is, I call it non-uniformed. That's how I call it. Non-uniform plaid or non-uniform stripes. Those are ridiculous. I try to avoid them as much as possible because, how do you intersect from the inside back to the outside back? Let's say you have a non-uniform velvet stripe. And I'm going to bore you guys with this one, right? And it has a really predominant nap, right? And you've got a club chair, right? And you got the stripe, non-uniform stripe, meaning, you got a blue stripe in the middle, and you've got a yellow stripe and a red stripe to the left or the right, and then another. It doesn't make sense in the way of uniformity, okay? And then what do you do on the outsides? Do you flip the velvet over and have it upside down, which is going to look ridiculous, to match the stripe, or do you do it the way you should do it and not match the stripe? Either way, it looks terrible. So in a case like that, I wouldn't even have it in my shop for sale. I'm sorry, but now that you have it, you're going to have to deal with those little subtleties. But you have to pick. Who's this, Patrick?
Helen.
Helen has to pick what she likes for the center, and then she has to decide from there if that's going to be good on the chair, based on how wide the chair is. It's all about width of the chair, width of the cushion, width of the seat, width of the arms, width of the chairs pieces. Sometimes you're better off, coming over into a non-stripe area or the background of the fabric. I have no idea what she has, so I'm just guessing. But in other words, trying to, with your workmanship, your genius, trying to make it uniform. And you may be able to do that. You may be able to make the fabric uniform. Do you see what I mean? Because it does repeat, depending on the width of the... Do you see where I'm going with this? This is very interesting, though, isn't it, Patrick?
Yeah.
The interesting question. I wish I had visuals for you guys. I do have a visual here. Let me get to this. This is from Allison. She's having a hard time. And I know exactly why she's having a hard time, and I want to explain to her what to do. She says, I'm hoping I can get some advice. And let me just hold this up first. Can you read it? Can you see it from there, Patrick? Or should I get closer?
Get a little bit closer so they can see the...
This is a chair that she's been working on. Remember, she asked about, in 1 week she asked about that stripe in the middle. I think she added that.
There we go. Looks
But
good.
she's obviously having problems with you see all the puckering on the sides. So I know exactly what she did. I know exactly what's wrong, what the approach was. So when you're doing an oval back like this, it's easy to get lost, and it's curved. She's got a double whammy. She's got a curved back, and she's got an oval back. It's a double whammy. And she's got a triple whammy, which is that she's got a fabric that's a quadruple, actually. The triple is, it looks to me like a, almost like a chintz, not a chintz, but like a damask, like a light color. She has a light colored damask, that's 2. She has an oval back, that's 3. And she has a curved back, that's 4. This is really going to test your abilities, okay? She did it, considering all that, and not having one, I think she's missing one piece of knowledge here on this, maybe a couple. I'll explain. She did an excellent job with all those things considered. And I know she's frustrated. She must be frustrated with what she's left. Is she looking ahead? Is Allison on now, Patrick?
Oh, I'm not sure.
So let me just keep reading what she says. I'm hoping I can get some advice as I'm struggling to get the white faux suede. It's a white faux suede, which is even worse. To the top, inside back smoothly. Every staple leaves a ripple in the fabric, and it is amplified by the sheen and light color of the fabric. I didn't actually read this, obviously, before I talked to you, but it's all making sense. Should I try shorter legs on the staples? And that won't help. Attach it with tack strip first. That won't help. Grasping at straws here. Thanks for any suggestions. Okay, so let me tell you what the fix is on this. Okay, so she's got, when people are doing an oval back, right, they forget about the stretching methods, okay? And what they forget about is the fact that when you're talking about a side on an inside back, you got a top and a bottom, and you got 2 sides, right? When you're talking about a side and an oval back, the side area comes down to, you won't believe it, the side area comes down to only about 2 inches right here. Let me get this. right in this area, maybe 3 inches. I'm gonna put it down in here. That's the side. That's a tip off to what I'm about to say, you guys. Right? You seasoned upholsterers probably know where I'm gonna go with this. Okay, so she's got her oversized fabric. She's trimmed this, obviously, you guys. She's trimmed this down. But what you do is you can pin tack the top to the side, which is right about here, believe it or not. It's around. This counts. In other words, this is important. This from here over to here, just about, counts as if this was a square, counts as the top. What most people do, the mistake that she made, and most people, this is just normal, they would go right here first. And then they would do the opposite, they would come down here and stretch it, which we show you how to stretch on the channel, on the upholstery channel all the time, right, you guys? But we're very rarely doing it around an oval. I don't think I've ever done an oval on the YouTube channel. It's always squares, rectangles, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
These are very challenging. So instead of doing this, though, so what you're going to do is from the top, you're going to pin tack. Pin tack always is recommended. Pin tack all the way here. And then your stretching will be to the bottom in the same area, stretch down all the way, all the way, all the way up. And and you're pin tacking. You're probably pin tacking about every inch, which is to be safe. So you're left with, by the time you get in this area, right, just this small area, after you've done your up and down stretch, especially since it's curved. You guys following this? It's curved too, which is another one of her whammies. She's got really, did I say 4 or 5 whammies in this, Patrick? So after you're done, you pin tack here, you stretch it down, you pin tack, half side at a time like I teach. And then before you tack anything on the side, which is just this little area right here, you can draw it up again, working a half side at a time from the middle tack out, which is another important element. And then, because pin tack is wonderful, you guys, nobody can staple. There's not an upholsterer in the world, I don't care who you are, if you're James Bond. James Bond wasn't an upholsterer, Sean Connery, Patrick. Sean Connery couldn't even do this, right, Pat? He couldn't take a staple gun and start
Jack the
stapling.
Ripper?
We don't mention him. You would have to mention him. You got me laughing. But then you can take it, you can stretch it down again and maybe stretch it back up again and make sure that it's tight. So you'll know that you did a good job when this area right in here is tight. Okay, so then she's got this extra problem of the projection. I guarantee you that she can staple in between the tacks after she gets it perfect. And I guarantee you, if she did it properly, she shouldn't project. It shouldn't project from there. It really shouldn't. So you staple in between the tacks, then take the tacks out and get another staple where the tack is, and she's good to go. Now remember, you've got a 1/2 inch of trim going on that, so some projection from the staple might happen, but as long as it's not more than a 1/2 inch, you're in good shape, right, Pat?
Yeah.
Anybody comment or? That was a good one. You guys keep challenging me with these tough projects. I like this.
Helen says, brilliant answer, thank you. Best avoided.
Did Helen?
Might lend some complimentary plane.
What's that?
Planes.
Oh, you're welcome, Helen.
And then Julie says, imagine if Allison had an uneven plaid on the oval back chair.
Well,
That'd be tough.
that would be like nightmare. That would be like Friday the 13th and Halloween all rolled into one, right, Patrick?
Just like Helen said, some things are best avoided.
Yeah. But I think she had 8 of them too, you guys, Patrick.
Wow.
I think she had 8 of those or more. She might have had more. She can fill us in on that one. I thought her last, she was inquiring about the stripe. Remember?
Right.
Before she did it.
Well, once she gets the first couple done, then
You
gets
get-
on a roll. You
yep.
know,
I'll tell you, those are the things that make you a good upholsterer. Those hard jobs, and stick with it. I remember I was working in a shop once on the 3rd floor of a factory building, and the upholsterer got so mad at it, she threw it out the window. and the boss was really
Did it hit
mad.
somebody on?
No, but it could have. But and he brought him into his office. I heard him yelling at him, and he said, "That's just a chair. Why did you let that defeat you? You let the chair win." He did. That day, he let the chair win, Patrick. You'll never let a piece of furniture win, right? You're not going to hurt its feelings after all, right? Oh, this is a silly day. I told Patrick before we started, I got a lot to talk about, a lot of different things to talk about, like this design element and upholstery. Actually, talk about design element. Allison, right? I commend Allison for taking this job on. I love what she did here. I think this is a separate, she sewed that stripe onto the fabric that she was using, which could be, did I say 5 whammies? Maybe that's the 6th one. Because when she's sewing that, you never know what it's doing, projecting from there to the fibers to the outside, right, Pat?
Exactly.
You never know. That could be. So the only thing she doesn't have is the plaid. All right. Anything else there, Patrick? We're having fun today, aren't we, guys?
A lot of good information.
Yeah. Well, it's because people are asking, and when they ask, that's good. So Tracy, she has a chair here, a rocket chair. I'll show you in a minute. She says, anyone have info on this slipper rocker? It does have flathead screws holding it together. I think it's Globe Boss World. I'm not sure what she means by that. To me, it looks a little bit arts and crafts. But Malcolm is good at this. And I think, is Randy on there, Patrick?
Yes, he commented earlier.
So I think maybe arts and crafts, you guys. What do you think? This is for Tracy's info. She's asking anybody out there if they might have an idea how to identify this. I will tell you that it's not what it is, and it's not what I call a grandmother's rocker. It's a small rocker, shaker maybe arts and crafts or both. That does look like a shaker, but maybe she should look underneath to see if it's labeled or anything. But I bet people will know that, Patrick.
Yeah, nobody commented on it yet, so I want to make sure we got to.
Keep watching Tracy in the comments. Is she on?
I didn't see her.
All right, here we go with, and you're going to be in the.
Malcolm says, "Can you pin staple this or tax only?" I'm not sure which one he was talking about.
You know what? On that one, I think I'd do tax because she's having problems with the fabric. The fabric is, I think she's better off with tax on this one. I very rarely use tax myself, though, Malcolm. I'm always pin stapling, and for people who don't know what that is, I wouldn't recommend it for beginners. It's taken not the use of the gun really, but it's taking the gun and putting it sideways and just putting a staple in, like getting one prong mainly in. On her job, I definitely would advise, first of all, she should have a padded bench. She should have the chair down. She should be working from the backside, the top of the chair with the outside back on the padded horse. And she should be pin tacking. And make sure the tacks are not, we reuse tacks, and sometimes that's a problem with them being bent. I don't like to waste things, but make sure that if you're going to do this with the tacks, with this fabric, that they're coming right out of the box. I mean, they come out of the box sterilized. I don't know if you guys realize that, but that's a tradition in upholstery to have sterilized tacks because we used to, and I don't recommend this today. You don't have to because of Malcolm, because of the pin staple. I mean, if you're getting in a journeyman area or a professional area, you don't have to be pin tacking, except in cases like this I would. And I think the reason I say that is I think you have a little bit more control over a tack than you do even the staple. That's just how I would. You could try it, but I have a feeling that if you're even pin stapling, you're going to do a lot of projection on this particular fabric, this suede, and this particular treatment. And the other thing I don't like about pin stapling this, Malcolm, is the fact that it looks like there's a lot of adjustments that's going to happen. A tack's easy to take out than a staple that's halfway. Sometimes you go a little bit too aggressive on the staple. You're going to need a side cutters to take it out. She's got a nice finished edge there, which I would be careful about. So I think 6-ounce tack specifically is the way to go with this one. And like I said, not stapling all the way when you know you've got it perfectly tight and hardly any of those puckers. The other thing, too, guys, a little secret. I forgot the other hack on that is the spring mist. It looks like, be careful on this one though, Allison. If you do have spring mist and you have a sewn piece of fabric that's stripe, you might want to test it somewhere else. If you've got one that you've, maybe an extra one that you have. Because sometimes when you have two fabrics that have been incorporated together like that, and you put the spring mist on, which shrinks fabric, you can imagine one might shrink more than the other, and then you've got a real big problem. So check that out. These are little things. Can you tell that all this stuff has happened to me, you guys? I'm trying to prevent you guys from having to go through any of this. Because all of this, I've learned, I learned the hard way, trial and error, and making costly mistakes, but not ever making them again. Like, for instance, putting bonded Dacron over horsehair, directly over horsehair, and then putting the fabric over the bonded Dacron. You tell me what's wrong with that now. Now, as a novice or journeyman, I thought this was great. Bonded Dacron just came out, new material. I'm dating myself. I'm talking about bonded Dacron, not regular Dacron. Regular Dacron was around a lot longer. Bonded Dacron came out. And so this is great. It's consistent. It's an even layer. It goes over the horsehair great. I'm going to use it even if it's muslin and then the Dacron. I'm still going to use it. It's great. Well, I did 6 chairs in a beautiful white damask similar to Allison's, and about 2 weeks later, Patrick, a woman called me and said, "This is Mrs. So and So. The chairs are growing hairs. You must come quickly."
This again.
I know, maybe people forgot about this. I'd like to forget about it. But the hairs have worked their way through a porous material. And that can include the muslin, by the way. Muslin is not as porous as the bonded Dacron, but it can work its way through with the sharp, being sharp in some areas, the hair comes through. And when I went in and looked at these chairs, I'm sorry, but it looked like an adolescent. Coming into
like my beard. Can barely go on.
all these little hairs coming out everywhere. I thought I was in a nightmare. Talk about Friday. These are Friday the 13th moment. Oh my God, to an upholsterer. But I had to do them all over again. Lesson learned. Always use cotton with horsehair no matter what. Because cotton takes it cannot work its way through cotton. A hair cannot work its way through cotton, especially a full layer of cotton. Just doesn't happen. It is brilliant. Anyhow, so I'd like to hear about your experiences, your horrible experiences in upholstery. But weird though, Patrick. But you can see it happening. Can't you?
No, it's...
With the materials. Any other questions or comments?
No.
All right, we're going to get to the YouTube, and then Michaela's in the wings to do. Do we have a couple of estimate requests, Michaela?
We've got 1 or 2.
1 or 2? Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. So we expect, Patrick, before I get to the YouTube, but what I'm hoping with the new idea with the GoPro is more of an entity, or knowledge, certainly. We get into a lot of knowledge stuff, and a lot, because they're all different projects and different people at different stages, a lot of information. But we have fun. Last night was a fun class. It really was. So I'm hoping that there's an entertainment value to this, too. Right? Maybe we could throw Jimmy in a couple of classes. You think Jimmy will come in with his one fan, that big dog?
Yeah, it'd be cool to get him to be in it.
Maybe he could come in as like a guest apprentice or something. Make him, come in. Maybe we should have the Merv Griffin.
Is he not taking the class right now?
Huh?
He was.
No.
I thought he was in one of them.
I think he's taking. I found out one time with Jimmy. If you guys know Jimmy, right? I found out he was taking a sewing class behind our back. Do you remember that, Patrick?
Yeah, that's why he's not doing it. That's why he's not here.
I think he's in another class, another upholstery class. That's okay. I can take it if he is. But he really did. When he left us for a semester, and I found out he was taking a sewing class. And I think I don't think he wanted to tell us. I found out through another source. Anyhow. let's get to the YouTube. And this is about Sewing Machine 101 for Upholstery. George says, as soon as I clicked your video and heard you talk, I knew you were a New Englander. I was parking my car in Harvard Yard. No, I'm from Hampton.
He said that.
I'm from Hampton, New Hampshire. I'm getting into auto upholstery, looking at machines now. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Oh, you're welcome, George. Anytime. I love that people can learn from the videos, especially the first videos we did. I always tell Patrick maybe we should take them down because some of them were, honestly, they were goofy in the beginning, and then we got serious, didn't we, Patrick? But you haven't taken one down, have you?
No. No.
And somebody commented about sometimes it's important. We love history in upholstery. Sometimes it's important. It's important to know the history of a channel, a YouTube channel, to see how it's evolved. And I certainly hope it's evolved, not devolved.
Oh, cool. Definitely.
Is that a word, devolve? You think it's evolved?
Yeah.
Into what?
Well, from a cell phone to better production. That's
Well, that's true. Malcolm would agree with that one. You should see tell him what type of camera am I looking at here, Pat? What is this?
It's a Canon. Not
Canon.
the exact model.
But it's a movie. It looks like a motion picture camera. It's big. What size is that? I don't even know. Does it go in size?
over a foot long.
No, I mean it's
Lengthwise.
Canon. But what else does it do? Zooms and.
I would hope so.
Well, I'm just trying to describe it to Malcolm. But I'll know one thing I know is it's expensive. But it's done us good, hasn't it,
It's
Pat?
worth every penny.
Yeah. Do you ever clean the lens?
Yes, but there's dust from the shop that's been
No,
accumulating.
no, that's no excuse.
The lens is always covered.
No, that's not snow that you see. That's Patrick not cleaning the lens. I'm teasing him a little
That's the
bit.
YouTube stream.
I'm teasing.
Making it like that.
I'm teasing him. Yeah, blame the YouTube. Yeah. Oh no, we can't blame them. Hi YouTube.
Yeah.
Hi masters of the
Careful what you
YouTube.
say.
We're sorry we said that because you never know.
Mhm.
What could get you off the air? I know swearing would get you off the air, right, Patrick?
I mean, yeah, you can swear, but you just don't get any money. Used to be able to.
You don't get any money? I think that's good punishment for somebody that swears. I try not to swear in my life, and I think that's good, Patrick, don't you? I mean, if they allowed swearing, you'd have people just swearing in YouTube
they
videos.
still do.
Huh?
They still do.
They sit there and use an obscenity over and over again. Anyhow, let's get back to reality here. Abigail says, in the fixing a pop button, there you go, Patrick. Always a popular video.
Yeah. Every comment seems to be on that.
She says, I love this video, but I was wondering, how would you fix a button that is still connected by the strings to the sofa that was slightly popped out of the tufting? So a slightly popped button is just as bad as a button that's completely popped. You have to cut the twine and start all over again, because what's happened is the slip knot has failed for whatever it was wrapped around, if it was indeed ever wrapped around something that was enough to hold the button in. Or if the knot wasn't secured, or if they're not using the right twine in that particular button, who knows? Or the back of the button, the loop maybe had fallen off. Sometimes that happens. If that happens, that's a little tricky. You need a machine to put it back together again. But this is a very popular video, and I can't see if this is for the free one, Patrick, for free,
Yeah.
right? So we used tools. We came up with the MacGyver type thing. On how to fix it with the tools that you have at home instead of getting the high-end, upholstery tools, right? So that was good. I want to catch up on the comments or anything, Patrick?
Malcolm has a good tip about the camera. He said use a hand blower and a camel hair brush before using a cloth to clean any camera lens. That is interesting.
Is Malcolm, ask him if he's doing YouTube. I'll ask him if he's doing YouTube
I'm
videos.
surprised if he wouldn't be with his background.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's by himself, how can he do both? I know I couldn't do both.
Maybe he's sick of all that because he's done it for so long.
Oh, yeah. And also, the business has changed so dramatically, too. Tib says on the Upholstery Show Live, thank you for your muslin explanation. My instructor in 1988 made us use muslin on everything, which is totally, if you're using it for a tool to teach, a teaching tool, Yeah, I can see doing it on everything, but it is like upholstering twice. You're putting the muslin on and you're putting the fabric on. It's not a loose material like cotton. Even dacron can be put on loose sometimes. Um, so it's like upholstering twice. So I can see, but I think my theory about that, especially in that time frame, 1988, was that we had a lot of crossovers from slipcover. Slipcover really didn't show gaps in the knowledge base. There were always seamstresses out there who were doing drapes and doing slipcovers. There wasn't a huge gap in upholstery. There was a huge gap in the knowledge. So I think what happened was that people were going into instructing on upholstery. They were slipcover people, and in slipcovers, muslin is king. You use it on everything. So I think that's another explanation for muslin use. But really, the only time I use muslin is on horsehair, over horsehair, and the reason we go over springs. So you have your coil springs, you have your 8-way tie, jute twine, you have your burlap, you have maybe a couple of layers of horsehair, if it's a crown seat, and then you have your muslin, and the muslin's put over the horsehair to contain the horsehair a little bit, to crunch it down just a little bit, but also to be able to use a regulator to regulate the valleys and the hills down from the top side. So that's why in a fine piece of furniture, you take it apart and you see all these little holes. It's not moth eaten. It's a regulator holes that the upholstery used. So that's about it. I've seen some people use muslin over foam. I'm not sure if that's a great idea. I just see that. I see that muslin walk. I see a lot of times when I take things apart that are muslin foam, is that there was a lot of walking that happened, and that's when fabric, if it doesn't have resistance, you're just going over the foam. Every time you sit on it, it just moves. It just jumps up and moves, even just a fraction, really small amount. But over many seatings, it starts to pull up from one side or off a nail rail on one side, and then you have problems with that. They haven't really improved on that. That's the best. What I just described on a seat with the coil springs, they really haven't been able to improve on that. That's the best. So, Michaela, do you have a couple of read that you can read to me? But before we do that, Patrick, is there any comments or questions?
No, I'll caught up here.
Okay. So, Michaela, people love this segment. We hear from Janine a lot on this segment. She uses this. She takes a screenshot of the picture, and she uses.
What was that?
I don't know what that was. And she uses the screenshots with the information that we give her with the pricing, even though she's in Australia. She uses that for her quotes or sales quotes. So this is important, at least for her, and I'm sure for others. So you want me to go to the...
Sandra.
Okay. Actually, I want to thank, before we get going, I want to thank Randy for sending that. Is he still there, Patrick?
I'm not sure. I think he was.
Randy sent a video of...
in the beginning.
Oh, I got to show you guys. You don't mind? Hold on a second, Bernice. Sorry. Hold on a second, Michaela. I really do want to show this. I don't think it's a problem showing a video on the phone, is it, Patrick?
Yeah, it should show up. Put it close enough to the camera.
But you guys would be really interested in this. It's he sent a video of the English upholsterers who were making the seat for the coronation of King Charles. I hope I can find it now that I opened my mouth. Okay. Oh, you got to see this, you guys. This is probably the best. It's on YouTube, so there you go, Patrick. You guys can go to the YouTube channel. I'll put that up in a minute. Can you see that? Huh? Can you see
A
it?
little bit, yeah.
That's an upholstery. Look at his mallet, you guys. Look at the wood mallet he's using. Now this guy's he's probably from a long line of upholsterers, you know. And that chair that he's working on is 700 years old. That's the coronation chair. He's stripping it down.
Oh,
See
that's
him?
awesome.
Isn't that
Why didn't they
awesome?
ask you?
Huh?
Why didn't they ask you to do it?
No, I don't think so. This guy's been grandfathered in. He's all set. He's all set. He's all set for life. He's the king's upholsterer. Can't get better than that, you guys. Okay, you ready for the signing of the
Sandra.
Sandra? Is she way down there, or is she?
It's at the top.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, you want to read that?
She just says, reupholster love seat, fabric needed too.
It's pretty straightforward, although I will tell you guys, I've done these before, these real rollover arms, a little, to see how thin they are and how tight they are. Those are a little tough. So, on this one here, excuse me, on this one here, I'd say 1800. Notice the hesitation. I went down in the price because it's a little slow, and when it's a little slow, sometimes I take a little bit off. So 1800, and the fabric amount that she needs is, let me hold it up there for Janine, would be...
It went black.
Oh, did it? Would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd say, let's just say 10 yards, just to be safe. I'm going a little bit over what I normally would get on that because of those arms. Those arms take a lot of fabric in front of the arms. Talk about, Malcolm, a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste in that panel. Okay, that's that. We got a new one up at the top. Do you want to read? That looks interesting. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, I think this is something that they're doing themselves. Hi Kevin. I have a Heels Contracts LTD London chair to reupholster, but I'm unsure as to whether to reuse the springs, edge roll, and horsehair, or whether to discard all of this in favor of using the blue upholstery foam. Are old upholstery springs reusable, or should they be replaced? And there's a bunch of pictures.
I think it would be a mistake to throw any of that original material out. And she's got a bunch of pictures. Let's look at the pictures first. First of all, spring, I very rarely have had to replace a spring. I've only seen, in my whole career, maybe 2 or 3 broken coil springs, and usually they were rusted out. But very rarely, and the way you guys can get the bounce back, you just pull them apart. You can get the bounce back by doing that. As long as they're the proper gauge, and these are small springs, there's nothing wrong with those springs, in my opinion. And you could tell how old these chairs are. See the webbing that's been used? That's an old English webbing. And she's got the horsehair. I mean, I try to encourage to keep horsehair. I mean, if your customer's kind of icky about horsehair or used horsehair, you can clean the horsehair. You can wash the horsehair, hand pick it, and reapply it. So what you can do is keep the coil springs, wash the horsehair if you want, replace the cotton, so for sure. But try to keep the integrity of the form. I mean, this is what you're trying to do. Those springs, a small spring specific to that chair, for instance. So if you go to a number one spring's bigger than this spring, and number one's the smallest that I use. These here, I would have a hard time to replace these. They're a small spring. They're like a number 4. I mean, a 0. They would be called a 0 spring. And those I don't think I can get. And also they look like they're copper, which is another good reason to keep them. But all of that, and keep one of the chairs together so that you know the look. Pictures don't tell the whole story. Did I answer everything for her? I think I did.
Yep.
Any other ones?
No, that's it.
I thought there was something else here. Well, that's good. Any other questions or comments, Patrick?
No? Okay.
I think we're good then. Look for more content in the YouTube channel coming up very shortly.
Well, let's say when, because we don't know when.
Let's just say shortly.
But I have started, me and Michaela have been going through the wingback.
And then when do you think the wingback? Because people are asking about that.
Like I said, definitely by the end of the month.
End of the month.
Probably
Okay.
could be sooner.
Okay, and you're gonna.
Officially, we've been started for a while now. We're looking through it. Looks cool. Some funny moments of Jimmy. So
Oh yeah, a lot of funny moments.
I might have to get rid of those.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of face blurring and editing, huh?
Yeah. You gotta see what's going on with Jimmy soon if he's coming back. For the
Yeah,
next class.
Can't
You don't know
keep-
what it's gonna be. You want to try to find a tufted chair. So
yeah, that's true. Let's try to do that. All right, well, we're all set here. We'll see you next
sounds
time.
good. Thanks, guys.
Yep.